Hey guys, we hit another 50 episode milestone, so I guess it's time for us to do another marathon. We love a good incel, we love a good femcel. How about a little bit of both? And hell, I'll throw in some other stuff to give us a break from the romance nonsense. But in any case, this confused asexual is ready to go through the worst of D&D romance, and I'm sure you guys are ready to listen. Without further ado, let's get started. The story begins with 5 players total. The DM, who was a Dragonborn in another one of my stories. Nice dude, really controlling though. Me is me, I was playing a halfling bard, and I had been playing D&D for about a year at this point. Barbarian was the cleric from another story, a good friend of mine and a staple in all of our campaigns. Druid, who was new to town at the time of the story, but eventually became one of my best friends. Also, she was a girl. Remember that. And the Rogue, a new kid to our school who was really into D&D and anime. He seemed nice enough, but trust me, that assumption was terribly incorrect. The campaign begins with the party imprisoned by Volgar, the Black Magic King. It started kind of generic with a big prison escape to end session 1. The problems didn't really start until session 2, where the party had to battle a group of bandits in order to prove that they didn't deserve to be imprisoned in the first place. Essentially, the bandit leader attacked the druid, doing quite a bit of damage. This made the rogue kind of pissed off. He looked at the DM and said, "Come on, dude, why would you do that?" As if the damage roll was the DM's fault. And the DM was like, "I didn't try to hurt anyone really bad, but the bandit rolled really high." "But bro, she's a girl. She deserves better." "Look, dude, I'm not gonna screw a roll just because she's a girl." "But bro," he really did say bro that long, "that level of intense pain is too much for a frail girl like her." What? I didn't paraphrase any of that. Now, the druid, the actual girl, she's just laughing so hard that it could be heard for miles. She's pretty chill, so she tried her best to blow it off, but as soon as she started to quiet down, he loses it.
"Is this funny to you? Are you amused by your own pain?"
Well, yeah, it's funny. You're making a big deal out of a few points of damage. That is really funny.
"What the hell? Do you not appreciate me defending your honor?"
What? Defend your honor? What does that even mean? Anyway, yeah, the druid's reaction was brilliant. "Well, why do you have to defend my honor when we're barely even talking to each other?"
"Because it is a man's task to defend a woman who is defenseless."
And then the druid's face just went blank, and then progressed into rage. "You did not say that all women are defenseless. What the hell, dude?" DM. Okay, let's just call the session there, guys. The druid and the rogue were at each other's throats for the next hour while she was waiting for the ride. According to the druid, the rogue sent her odd pictures on Instagram later on, to which she blocked him and reported him to the cops. The game continued without the rogue, and we even got a new rogue later on. You know, I was gonna ask if they know what those pictures specifically were, but I don't think we need to. I think we all know what they were. And I think we all know that the druid was 100% justified in calling the damn police because, oh my god! A few months ago, I got into Descent into Avernus game. Things started reasonably well, and the DM did a fairly good job, and obviously put a lot of work into remaking the maps on Dungeon Craft, for example, but there were some weird choices from the start. He had some module installed on Foundry that made random critical fumbles out of 1, and those range from basically nothing happens to combat-breaking stuff. I distinctly remember one that just broke your weapon. Yeah, even if it's magical or story relevant, and one that emptied your spell slots if you're a spellcaster. Imagine that happening at level 20. What really threw me off was, on one occasion, I missed 2 sessions because of some really personal stuff. I just let them know I won't be able to make it to that game, and I guess my mistake was that I didn't choose to elaborate on why. Then, at the session I got to go to, he told me to add 2 exhaustion points. I asked why, and he said it was because of the missed sessions. I asked if this was just for 1 game, and he said,
"Nope, they are permanent. Even if your character dies, it'll transfer to your new character."
I said, okay, I'm leaving the table then, because I was playing a bard, and I won't bother playing with disadvantage on all ability checks with the class most focused on them. Not to mention, the halved speed can be deadly. He then, probably not wanting to deal with recruiting another player, decided to retract it and make it so you lose 1 point at the end of the session. Unfortunately, that was enough to make me try to stay, partially out of respect for the amount of work and paid resources that went into running the game. Then comes a person that I don't know if I'd call them a that guy, but he was definitely a guy. I'll just call him Barbarian. I later learned he was playing a chaotic evil character, and yeah, I could tell. First, it started with him being incredibly loud and intense character, or maybe he was just an intense guy. I don't know if he's naturally like this, but he would constantly get in between negotiations or social interactions, instigating violence, and sometimes get over people's plans for diplomacy, which was kind of constant with me being a bard. The surprise for me was when we invade a mansion with a certain NPC villain that is disabled and has spies. People who ran/played the module might recognize them. He threatens to... The DM asked for a clarification if his character was willing to realize the threat, if he doesn't get it, or if it's a bluff, to determine if intimidation or deception probably. And of course he says that he is absolutely willing to do this. That was really out of nowhere to me because they didn't mention this was a possibility in the game. I wasn't like triggered by it. Neither was anyone at the table, I think, but yeah, maybe they should have mentioned this was part of the content of the game. After some sessions, we were robbed by a gang of small children that take some of our purses, including mine and the barbarians. We find one of them, and he tortures the kid to the point of breaking his arm to get info where the other children are. Mind you, that's after I suggest, I don't know, like using charm person or suggestion. All this changed when we hit level 5, I think. The DM takes us to Candlekeep, and we try to buy and sell some magic items, and the DM basically has the shopkeep let us freely draw from the deck of many things. And for context, my character was addicted to gambling by his backstory, so it was basically metagaming for him not to draw from it. But another player draws first, and mine second. This was apparently an on-the-fly decision by the DM because he hadn't prepared the deck. So he solved that by counting the number of cards and having us roll X number of cards. Me and the other player roll at the same time, but he comes out on top. And while the DM is counting the first player's roll, myself with the physical book is counting mine. And bam, I got Moon. If you don't know what that means, it means 1d3 wishes. You can imagine my giddiness. When the DM goes to count mine, he takes a bit and says something different. I got Skull, which means my character has to fight an avatar of death. I got confused, but think, he might be using just another list. He leaves that for a while the same character, who drew a card that did nothing, inversing alignment while staying true neutral, well, that first character draws again, and bam, same number as mine, so Skull as well. Now there are two characters fighting death. Which one do you think won? The fighter with a legendary shield with fireballs and wall of fire? It was +2, I think, but AC doesn't matter because the enemy automatically hit. Or the bard with support spells. The results were predictable. At the time, I was okay with it because it was a fitting end for an addict gambler. So I started making a new character, maybe a Hexadin, but after we descended into Avernus, I don't think that's a spoiler, we get 2 sessions of only combat encounters non-stop. That means that I barely have time to talk as my character, and the conspiracy theory is that the DM had purposefully given me the wrong card, and it was getting to me, which I would understand if he changed the wish card into another positive card, fearing that the wish one would break his game, but, you know, after all that, I just made some excuse and left the table. Honestly, the deck of many things thing is something that is not a huge deal to me because, honestly, if you draw from the deck of many things, I'm sorry, it's gonna screw you over. I don't know what to tell you.
Percy lost his arm rescuing you.
I'm sorry.
Are you?
No.
The much more significant deal is the Barbarians' nonsense. I mean, I don't know how they hesitated to call this person a that guy, because they definitely are. I mean, the threats they were making against random NPCs, the torture. I mean, look, are these things that you could cover in your game? Sure, I guess so, but the fact of the matter is that, like the OP pointed out, this is not content that the DM nor the Barbarian talk to the party about in advance, and with this kind of topic, you need to talk about in advance. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's simple as that. I know that when I say things like that, it makes some people sweat, but frankly, if your entire group is okay with the things that your character does, then why are you sweating, man? So I'm part of an RPG Facebook group that coordinates games, helps new players, etc. Most of the active voices in the group chats have been fellow DMs, and sometimes we talk about world building. Now, this one DM, who we'll call Orc DM, was asking us to help name an army to be affiliated with a demigoddess character he made. He went into details surrounding the character's lore and the flavor of the army. Honestly, it was kind of an incoherent mess, and he said he wanted the army name to be good because Warhammer has the Ultramarines, which are iconic. I want to be iconic too. A few other DMs and I started tossing around some ideas, but then Orc DM didn't seem to acknowledge any suggestions, and suddenly, without warning, started to go into detail on how in his setting, all the orcs are hermaphrodites called Orcs with necks. They regularly raid human settlements for the sole purpose of having non-consensual relations with all the men, because it is the only way to God. After which they eat their victims. Women and children would be forced into servitude and made to serve the orcs in a crude fashion, whatever the hell that means. So the other DMs start suggesting different ways to make orcs interesting that don't involve that, but instead of replying or acknowledging anything anyone says, he just sends us an entire short story from his setting. He typed the whole thing out in Messenger. The story didn't even make any sense. At that point, people stopped chatting. However, he does show up again whenever the group chat is talking about world building, but he always ends up making it about his setting and just kills the chat. Man, I've seen awkward text interactions, but that's a whole nother level.
As the fight continued, the mighty Orcs with an X, that's important.
One eternity later.
The Orcs used their big, bulky muscles to drive back the bloody Duke and used them to grab all the lovely boys and beautiful, big-chested women. But the bloody Duke was routed by Lord Caldaris and reclaimed their precious possessions, I mean girls, to have in their camp. Do you like my fanfiction?
Oh boy. Jesus. Unrelated, but is anyone else excited for the Shadow of Weird Wizard game? So, picture this. You're sitting in your Dungeons & Dragons Discord server, somebody joins, more the merrier, right? And then the first thing they do is send you a flurry of questions.
Are people easily offended here? Are the mods here abusive to players? Are pronouns required? Is moderation corrupt?
We do not enforce pronoun use, and people make mistakes. As long as it's not meant to be, offensive by using incorrect pronouns, it's okay to make mistakes. Just don't violate Rule 1.8.
That falls under compelled speech and is by its nature political.
Look, as I said, we do not compel speech.
As long as it's not meant to be offensive by using incorrect pronouns, it's okay to make mistakes. So what if I refuse to use a pronoun then?
Well, plenty of people lean towards using neutral words, such as they.
As a member of the LGBT plus community, I myself don't use they, or expect others to use it, or think it's polite to do so. I actually think it's immoral and delusional. You might say it's one step removed from calling oneself Napoleon Bonaparte. So I ask again, is it an enforcement issue if I openly refuse to use neutral pronouns?
Okay, look, server owner here, I just like to ask real quick, why are you asking these questions, and what are you expecting out of this?
I'd like to know if your server is left-leaning, political, decent, or moral people, and if you ban people for disagreement. So cut through the BS. I drafted a list of questions that allow me to judge the morality of people quickly.
So why are you openly stating that you believe people who use neutral pronouns are delusional?
Yes, a member of the LGBT plus community compelled is immoral speech, and pronouns can be delusional.
Unfortunately, acting in such a way is antagonistic at best, openly saying, hey, are your mods abusive? Are your players hostile? No self-respecting server is going to answer in anything but positivity. So all you're doing by asking these questions is displaying antagonistic behavior.
Interesting choice of words. What do you find antagonistic specifically? And the reason I'm asking these questions is often in leftist-leaning environments. Disagreement is often met with hostility and instant ban. See Twitter.
Are people easily offended? Do DMs and mods ban people for the simplest disagreements? Are the mods here abusive? Is there any reason at all I should be concerned that people here act with hostility to disagreement? Are all rules applied equally? Is moderation corrupt? Dude, we're here to play Dungeons and Dragons. We're not here to be politically charged or to verbally harass people. If you plan to do either, you won't find a place here. I'm also not here to debate your opinionated statement.
I've actually asked this list of questions on many servers. Some people just ban you right away. Well, again, it's a factual statement, not opinionated. Could we agree to disagree? Again, see Twitter, Facebook, Twitch Discord, MySpace, when it was around.
Likely because you're antagonistic. Furthermore, I'm not going to entertain such questions in depth. No, this server is, and I'm sure many will attest to this, a D&D server. There's no place for politics, nor should you expect to find any. There's no preconceived bias regarding any person, and as long as you're respectful and follow the rules, you won't run into problems.
Now, just curious about the nature of the people on this server. The questions are not in any way antagonistic. Viewed through personal bias is the only time they become controversial, antagonistic, or contentious. But given that you, the head DM, feel they are antagonistic, controversial, and contentious, tells me everything I need to know about the morality of the people here and what kind of echo chamber this is.
We're not here to entertain any further questions regarding the morality of my staff. I've already answered your questions. Whether you accept them or not is irrelevant.
My last question before I leave is, how many people have you unjustly banned?
Okay, look, good luck finding a server.
I found several that are not so easily offended. One question, how do you sleep at night? And is sociopathic narcissism common for you? It's a learned trait. Did you learn it at a young age, or was it developed later in your life?
I'm not going to sit here and entertain your benign insults. Have fun.
Farewell, banal sociopath.
Folks, is it sociopathic to be decent to other human beings? I have seen this sort of thing countless times. Someone comes in looking for a fight, people respond appropriately, and then they play the victim, acting like some lone rebel fighting against oppression. You're not. You're an idiot looking for attention on a Discord server. Nothing more, and, well, there's not much less. Also, I certainly did not miss the irony of, are people easily offended? While at the same time being extremely offended by two common words in the English language. Look, if you want to find a D&D group, I have this simple one-step process. Don't be a discriminatory It's unbecoming, and people are not gonna like you that much. It's not rocket science, people. It really isn't. I've been watching for a while now, thank you by the way, and thought I'd finally throw my hat into the ring. All of my D&D/TTRPG experiences have been great thus far, except for one. I had gotten in contact through my school with a group that wanted to run a module. I don't remember which one now, but it's a common one. I was excited and we seemed to have a group to do it, so I made my character and was ready to go. Fast forward to the day of, and only the DM, myself, and one other player showed up. They were friends beforehand. We were playing in a game store and settled into a corner, and an important thing to note about the store was that it had TVs in it that played a myriad of shows. The issue starts coming in after we start playing, as the others cannot focus on the game because they're watching a show on the TV, which had a female protagonist predominantly featured in the episode playing. Most of the game was full of them ogling over this person they had never met, talking about how nice it would be to have a girl like that, how tall she was, her body, etc. Basically, kind of incel-y straight guy talk. Now, I'm bisexual, and the topic of conversation switched to how they weren't homophobic, because one of them almost kissed the guy this one time. I don't even know what to say about that. It honestly just made me uncomfortable with them constantly being mildly misogynistic and just kind of creepy. It sucks too because I thought they were generally alright guys, but come on. Anyway, we didn't even make it through a single combat encounter before the game ended because of the amount of time they wasted watching a TV show instead of playing the game we were all paid to play. It was overall a relatively mild encounter, but I never went back to that game and haven't gotten to play that character since. Frankly, if you need to randomly bring up how not homophobic you are, totally guys, not homophobic, I feel like that's a bit of a red flag. As for the ogling over a girl on the TV, honestly, well, it would be kind of hypocritical of me to make fun of them for that. I was at a sushi place with some friends, and I was distracted by this gorgeous girl on the television. Otachi from Pacific Rim just hits different. So, I've been holding on to the story for a while because I don't have many friends who play D&D. I've been wanting to jump into D&D for a long time, but never knew the right people or knew people who were too late into their campaign to add another player. When I started uni, I finally actually played the game though. The first session went well, but I was a little rocky since it was my first time. I decided to keep going because I was getting to know the other players really well, and I liked playing Magic with them too. The second session is when it gets bad. Our party came across a group of elves who got high on something. They offered it to our party, and our wizard, only our wizard, said yes. A player on our party decided to take the leader of the elves who was high into a bush, and she and the DM came up with a scenario that he thought he was having intercourse with his wife at home, but was actually too high to speak, having, you know, that in a bush with a woman he just met. Oh my god.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
After the scene played out, I pointed out that she basically took advantage of a guy who didn't have the capability of giving consent, and the mood dropped. They looked at me as if I had just said something horrible and couldn't figure out why I had a problem with what just happened. After a few moments of awkward silence, they changed it to an illusion spell or something. That's not better. After this, we fell out of contact with each other, and only one of us out of a 6-player group even attends the university now. I haven't spoken to any of them since. So, yeah, second ever experience did not go so well, but hey-o, it did not stop me from continuing with a different party of people I'm really comfortable with. Sometimes finding a better party in greener pastures is the only thing you can ask for. But good God, what's up with you guys just dropping this stuff on me so quickly? I mean, it's becoming a habit. So I play with a group of people that I more or less have known since high school and college. The DM was one of my best friends since we were 14. Most of us are guys, but there are 2 girls. That guy's sister, aka the Paladin, and my high school friend, aka the Ranger. There were 3 other guys at the table. That guy, Fighter, and Barbarian. I'm just gonna refer to these people by their class, since there's no way in hell I'm using their real names. Anyway, we haven't played D&D in a while because of pandemic reasons, and even afterwards, we all kind of had hectic schedules because of school and work. That guy's sister and Barbarian were still in college. But a couple of months ago, we decided to run a homebrew campaign that was supposed to be like a mix between Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. The campaign was supposed to be very dark, and I was excited. Well, we got to session 0/1, and that guy's sister introduces us to him. He was her older brother, and clearly socially awkward. He always seemed like the younger brother, despite being 7 years older than her, but he seemed like a good guy, you know, at first. So we get into the game, we start seeing red flags with this guy almost immediately. He was constantly threatening NPCs, even going so far as to murder a random drow. He's supposed to be a lawful good wizard, but he claims that murdering this drow is a lawful good act because
Drow are an evil race, by definition.
this was blatantly untrue in our campaign, but he went all rules lawyer on us when we tried to tell him that wasn't the case here. He also saves the body parts of the NPCs and creatures he or the party kills, including the ball bits. He would also constantly flirt with the Paladin. You know, his sister's character. We just kind of assumed it was his character decision, and she would pretty much just go along with it, and we wouldn't question it too much until the idiotic level 1 wizard with no armor attempts to block a firebolt to defend his full hit point paladin sister, who is a whole ass level above him. So obviously, he dies. We almost got TPK'd because of this. We ended up barely fleeing the encounter and left him to the ogre thinker, you know, to die. He then rolls up an artificer, and surprise, surprise, he is basically the exact same character, except he dropped the pretense of being lawful good and just went full murder hobo. His flirtation with the paladin intensified until he died again, playing the same paladin loving murder hobo over and over. He even got to the point where he would basically murder anyone who even spoke to her, his sister. At this point, we start thinking that this is getting weird. How many characters can you go through before the whole "it's what my character would do" excuse stops working for hitting on your sister? We end up having a little talk with him about his characters and try to gently steer him into playing something different, or flirting with another character maybe? he got really defensive and pissy and basically gave us the whole, "It's what my character would do" excuse. We didn't want to push this or cause more problems, so we let it go. Well, he kept on escalating until he was making certain comments about her character. That kind of content is fine in our game, but the context was making this increasingly weird. Eventually, he made a comment that was clearly related to her IRL appearance and not the character. So we ended up messaging her to ask if she wants us to kick him, and she said no. Her response was just that he is really into the roleplay. He really likes you guys too. Yeah, because mindlessly murdering every NPC that mildly annoys him is so quality roleplay. This story doesn't have a dramatic ending with the problem player going full incel and getting kicked or anything. We pretty much just were playing with that guy and trying to keep him from murdering too many important NPCs and ignoring him when he occasionally tries to badly be an obnoxious rules layer or hit on his sister's quote-unquote character. Thankfully, the DM has basically caught on to most of his shenanigans, just letting him die. He is now a full 3 levels behind the rest of the party, and we pretty much go into combat as if he's not even there. Well, that's certainly a situation, to say the least. What's up with all the Targaryen in these stories? I'm starting to get really, worried about the demographic of TTRPG players. We're seeing this more and more. I mean, the sister has made her feelings on the situation clear, and I think you should respect her wishes, but there's a part of me that kind of just wants to go up to the guy and just ask him, straight on, "Hey, man, why do you keep on flirting with your sister's character? Just, see what he says." Our party consisted of Hal the Eldritch Knight, Angel the Sorcerer, Doc the Warlock, and Warlock the Paladin. Rowan the Paladin. They were all stuck in a hellish demiplane. A powerful cabal of fiends had managed to secure the rights to Angel and Rowan's souls on binding contracts. So beyond escaping the demiplane, their group's side goal was to get these souls right back. A few sessions into the arc, the DM invited Hunter the Rogue to join the group, and Hunter's players seemed to hit it off with Doc in their enjoyment of crunchier mechanics of older games. But more than high numbers on rolls, the DM, Angel, Rowan, and especially Doc loved dramatic roleplay. Through the arc, the DM demonstrated through an NPC follower getting cleaved in half that the demiplane had a respawn mechanic. If the characters died doing something epic, risky, or crazy fun, they would reform 8 hours later, albeit with some memories lost or a temporary debuff. This encouraged the more reserved Hal and Hunter to be more involved in high-risk endeavors and intrigue as the party tangled with creatures far above their power level. Hunter's various expertise led the party to find the Cabal's hideout and that Angel and Rowan's soul rights were being held by a Rakshasa in there, along with finding a tuning fork to get them out of the demiplane. Unfortunately, Angel and Hunter knew this Rakshasa had plane shift because it was the monster who had brought Hunter to the demiplane in the first place, and it had been slowly driving some of Hunter and Angel's friends insane because its cursed claws caused terrible nightmares. Hal was able to persuade one of the Cabal's guards to the party's side. The guard would bring the party into the hideout under a guise they wanted to use to make a deal with the Rakshasa. Hunter could break into the vault to steal the tuning fork and the soul rights, or if the party killed the Rakshasa, the guard would happily bind it to an amulet and take over her old boss's position. Most of the party wanted to go with the latter plan, but Doc was worried the Rakshasa would grab the soul rights and the plane shift away. Doc also complained most of the party were spellcasters, whose spells were way too low level to affect a Rakshasa. Some of the group were disappointed by Doc's metagaming slip, but the DM retconned that the traitor guard could have told them about the spell immunity. This is where things get messy though. In character, most of the party agreed to fighting the Rakshasa. It was risky, so they enlisted some NPCs to help keep the scrolls out of the Rakshasa's claws. Out of character, the players said they were getting tired of the demiplane setting after 10 sessions and wanted to go with the plan so Hunter and Angel could fight the monster from their backstory. When the group ended the session, Doc wanted to talk with the DM about something dramatic privately between sessions so there would be no spoilers for anyone else. During the next session, the group set everything up so the party can fight the Rakshasa. Hunter and Angel were particularly cautious, double-checking that the guard wasn't going to pull anything funny, and that the NPCs could get to the vault, and, so on. When Hunter rolled his final check before going in, the check was to make sure the other characters were all present with the correct gear, and the DM declared with a 24 perception that Hunter was right. Everything was in order. Nothing was afoot. But when the party got to the Rakshasa, the NPCs had been caught, and Doc threw the allied guard down at her boss's feet, claiming the party was better off making a genuine deal with the Rakshasa than fighting without anyone to keep the Tiger Fiend away from the souls. Doc did most of the talking with high charisma, while Rowan stopped Angel and Hunter from launching into a fight. A deal was struck where Doc nobly sacrificed himself into servitude, and the Rakshasa sent the party home with their souls. But Hunter, who had previously met the beast, was recognized right before the plane shift, and he, the guard, and Doc died trying to stop the Rakshasa from cursing Hunter with its claws. After the session, the group was excited about the dramatic turn of events and deeply involved role-playing. Angel's player did ask if Hunter was alright with losing his character over Doc's actions. Hunter said it was alright so long as Doc had played fair and rolled higher than his perception. Doc claimed that he did. Then the DM quickly changed the topic to allow Hunter and Doc to respawn the demiplane and rejoin the party after a time skip in game. When Doc and Hunter did get to rejoin, Hunter asked if the party could help save his and Angel's cursed friends, to which Doc said absolutely not, because that would erase all the work the party did to get him out. Plus he, Hal, and Rowan had their own business to take care of on the material plane. Rowan thought the strong opposition was strange, but didn't say anything. Much later, Rowan and the others had to suffer the fallout of Doc's lie. The DM eventually came clean and told Hunter that Doc's hidden roll was only a 5, and he was sorry for fudging. When Hunter confronted Doc about lying and cheating, Doc said he was sorry for taking the spotlight at the wrong time. Everything else was because the DM allowed it, and he couldn't be guilty for going along with what the DM allowed. Apparently, attempts were made to mend the mistakes, but only the DM, Angel, and Rowan actually helped. Doc adamantly claimed he played fairly, never owning up to lying and refusing to change, which in turn pissed off Hunter, who constantly nagged about everyone rolling openly. Hal quit TTRPGs, with the group dissolving not long after. Poor Rowan and Angel were stressed for months. What do you think? What could the group have done after the lie was revealed? God, there's so much stupid in this story. First, the DM is just bad at their job. I don't like revivify in most games. So you can imagine how I feel about somebody being able to respawn in Dungeons and Dragons automatically. I mean, goodness gracious. God, that sounds like a campaign with absolutely no stakes, but you know, that's a me thing. I'm not trying to say this group is doing it wrong. They seem to be having a good time, and that's all that matters. It's just a pet peeve of mine. Rowan is the big issue, but so is the DM just in general. Rowan betrayed the party and fudged dice for this dramatic moment. The DM can't just say, oh yeah, sorry guys, in hindsight. No, that's so clearly a stupid thing to allow. Why would you even bother to allow it in the first place? Yes, Rowan is pissing me off for being a spotlight hogging ass monkey, but the DM is also pissing me off for being a big damn idiot. God, it's all just so stupid. I DM'd once for a horny bard that just wouldn't quit, and it was not fun for me. Instead of writing some long post detailing the entire length of my short and grueling campaign, I'm going to talk about what made the whole length of the campaign awkward. Verity, the Tiefling Bard. The party midway through the campaign shocked me by joining up with my BBEG, which was totally awesome, by the way. However, to prove themselves to the big bad, they needed to do a job for him. They needed to track down a bunch of troublesome defectors and kill them all. You know, the usual kill quest. However, the BBEG did not entirely have a reason to trust the party yet, so he assigned his lieutenant, a Gnoll barbarian, to assist and keep tabs on the group. The bard was instantly attracted to this Gnoll, like you wouldn't believe. Despite her character being married and a mother, and the player's real-life husband playing the party's paladin, Verity wanted to bang this Gnoll. No, she needed to bang this Gnoll. This would be the player's priority until the campaign ended. The bard was making move after move on this Gnoll every chance she had. It would not stop. The very plot of the campaign was lost to Verity. The party was stranded on the cursed island of GTFO, and that no longer mattered to her because they were stranded together, possibly forever, which was bad for me now. I wanted the campaign stakes to be high, but I'm the DM. The stakes shouldn't be weighed against me like this. Eventually, the party finds the defectors and combat finally begins. Things went horribly, and if it hadn't been for the Gnoll tanking hits for the party, it was looking like a TPK. The sorcerer died and was eaten alive by a giant hyena. To make the combat easier with the hopes of avoiding the imminent TPK, I had 2 of the defectors flee from battle. But what was going to save the party was the other 2 players agreeing to retreat. Good idea. What went wrong though? The bard wanted to dash to the far end of the room and loot the 3 chests I described earlier. You know, that's the opposite of retreating. Here is the literal definition of the word retreat, copy-pasted if you were wondering, an act of moving back or withdrawing. There it is. And wouldn't you know, the bard picks the middle chest. The middle chest was a mimic I had put there to surprise the party after the fight. The time you should be looting, not before. I sigh, pause for a moment, then describe the chest baring teeth and biting down the bard's forearms with 2 hit points remaining. Luckily, through the combined efforts of the gnoll and the paladin, they were able to separate the 2, and the bard succeeded on her death saves. I described one of the gnoll defectors mounting up on the giant hyenas, and now I hear, whoa, 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 stop! Now I said mount, as in like mount a horse, or summon your mount in an MMORPG. That is what any normal person would think when you say mount. My players thought I was describing an open sexual act. If you couldn't tell, my players aren't normal people.
Hello there, welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to talk about mounts. Specifically,
What is this? Porn?
After clearing this up, which I shouldn't have had to do, I described the enemy gnoll riding away. This is a retreat. This needed to be said. Fortunately, the paladin and gnoll were able to knock him off his mount and finish the job. Afterwards, the party looted the room and somehow lost a magic item. Yeah, this is what happened. The paladin opened up a chest and cast Detect Magic. I tell him the chest contained a rusted -1 weapon that looks like it wasn't going to help him. The paladin opens chest number 3 and it contains a few gold pieces, rubies, and a good-looking bag. The paladin ignores this loot because he doesn't want to haul it all. The party had passed by a ruby of the war mage and a bag of holding, which could be used to haul everything. I dropped hints and they were ignored. The party leaves the body of the sorcerer, and he had the paladin's magic sword, and it's still there to this day. When the party leaves the building, the paladin tries to carry the bard but rolls low, so the gnoll barbarian carries her. I wake up and passionately kiss him, says the bard. You are unconscious for a few hours, I respond. Next session, the bard nearly dies. Again, the sorcerer makes a deal with a devil and nearly kills himself. Again, but now the job is done. I meant their job for the big bad. Verity is still on a mission to get boned by this gnoll. Now, you might be wondering, who is this mysterious gnoll barbarian? Is he handsome? Is he gentle? Is he even romance material? No, and no, none of the above. It is at this point I have the bard roll insight on this barbarian to figure out his agenda. Nat 20. He is a brutal killer that feels absolutely nothing towards you. He looks up to his boss and is here to make sure you don't lie about the completion of the job. Now, you would think the power of the natural 20 insight roll would mean the information given to you is uncontestable, right? No, the bard's player did not believe me. You heard that right. The bard did not believe what I, the dungeon master, was telling her. I told her that this was absolute. This ship had sunk. This information is canon, and she did not believe me. The worst part about the gnoll was his name. What was his name? Bone. It was Bone. That was it. The bard wanted to bone. I got inspiration for the name from the Warrior Cat series. It's great. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. But back on topic. Why did I have to pick Bone? Why? Now, the most important thing I have to say during the climax of the story is my relationship with the bard. Why was I so reluctant to humor her? Well, the paladin was my dad. The sorcerer, the problem player, was my brother. And the bard was my mother. Yup.
That escalated quickly.
This whole time, this was a family campaign, and my mother wanted to get intimate with a fictional character played by me. Any normal person would try to shut this down. I tried. But I am the only normal person in the family of not-so-normal people. For better or worse, the campaign ended horribly, and we were all angry at each other for some time. After 2 months for everyone to cool down, I asked my mother, whatever happened to Verity? It's her character, right? She should decide. She said Verity Bone, and they were together now. God. Okay, it has been 4 years, and I am starting up a new Pathfinder campaign with my parents, grandparents, and without my brother. Horror story for another day. This time, there will be absolutely no flirting with the DM when we return to the island. None. Not happening. And although this is a sequel campaign, Verity shall not be returning. I don't care that she's probably still alive. She is simply not appearing in this campaign. Good call, oh my god. The Shyamalan twist at the end with the whole family campaign is something we have never seen on RPG horror stories before, and something I hope we will never see again, though knowing this series, it always manages to surprise me in the worst ways. The writer has clarified that their relationship with their family has greatly improved, and that this was mostly an issue of character bleed, not IRL creepiness. So don't jump into the what is true dimension to assume things about this person's relationships. That's really weird and parasocial. I think this is mostly an issue of incompatibility. I'm not trying to say that their future campaign with their family is doomed to fail, but clearly this campaign that we're reading about, it was not going to work simply because the players aren't working together. I mean, you have a brother that apparently does not get along with the DM, aka our writer. You got your mom, make you uncomfortable. I mean, it's just a bunch of components that don't fit together, and sometimes they're not meant to fit together. Not everyone needs to play D&D on the same table in the same group. Some groups just aren't meant to be. It's an unfortunate truth, but oftentimes that is the case. Another saga reaches its conclusion. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, you can check out the worst of RPG horror stories, where I put down all of your guys' favorites from this long-running series. It's linked in the cards, and while you're there, subscribe to Crispy Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, if you can't think of a comment, leave the comment worst of romance to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you want to send your own horror stories, head down into the description. There's an email down there where you can send them over to us. But hey, even if you don't have any horror stories, unless like, comment, subscribe, I'll see you all next time. Farewell.